Great. Thank you for recording, Katya. Good evening, everyone, and hello, and thank you for joining us here tonight. Welcome to the second community workshop for the City of San Carlos's Downtown Specific Plan project. My name is Lisa Porras, and I serve as the planning manager for the City of San Carlos's Advanced Planning Division, and I will be facilitating tonight's meeting. Let's see. Are my slides advancing? I don't think so. Here we go.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So leading the development of a downtown specific plan for the city and establishing a shared vision for downtown is led by the City of San Carlos, but we are supported from the consulting team of RRM Design Group and their sub-consultants from W-Trans, GPA, the Nadelson Dale Group, and Lamphere Gregory. So a few notes just before we get started for those of you who have just joined us. This meeting is being recorded. The recording will be available on the project website after tonight's workshop. We want to let you know that although your microphones are muted during the presentation, we do invite you and encourage you to type in any questions, observations, or comments in the chat feature, which I will show you in just a moment. And then if we have time tonight, we will open up the mics to see if there's any questions at the conclusion of this meeting. But because there's a lot to get through, we want to save that towards the end. So as most of us are all familiar by now, I think most of us are in terms of using Zoom to provide any comments or feedback, please do use the chat feature located at the bottom of the screen, which is highlighted here as the, whoops, why isn't this showing? Oh, this is, sorry about that. I guess this is on active mode. So you're going to want to use the chat mode, the chat feature at the bottom of the screen. And then if you want to minimize the gallery view so you can see more of the slides, you can go to the top right corner of your screen and kind of toggle through speaker and gallery view. You can certainly use gallery view to see who else is here tonight. And you can turn your video on or off as you choose. So tonight's workshop includes not just myself, but also tonight we have here our Community and Economic Development Director, Al Savay, Jamie Williams from RRM. We also have Katya Dillman from RRM as well. And then Brian Canepa from W-Trans is also joining us. Also tonight here, we have the mayor for the City of San Carlos, Adam Rack. And the mayor would like to offer us some opening remarks before we dive into tonight's workshop. So at this time, I invite Mayor Adam Rack. Welcome.
Great, thanks, Lisa, and thanks for the opportunity to say a few words. I'm certainly really excited for this workshop and for all the participation tonight. When we, a couple years ago with the pandemic coming, it was obviously a pretty difficult time for many people, but it did allow us to make some changes to the downtown and really kind of help push us to a situation we say, with the closure of parts of Laurel and some of the changes, to reassess our downtown. And so it gave us that opportunity, and this is obviously part of the phase for that process. So I'm excited for everyone to come to this second community workshop on our downtown planning initiative, and appreciate all of you being here. Last year, we started on an ambitious planning initiative to develop a shared vision for the future of our downtown. And the goal of the City Council is to ensure that the downtown of the future meets the needs and aspirations of the community and businesses, not just today, but well into the future. So tonight's workshop is focused on exploring ideas and concepts for Laurel Street, including gathering spaces, pedestrian walkways, and alleyways. And as we know, the downtown plays an important role in social life and economic vitality of the city. So for tonight's exercise, we hope to inspire you to consider the potential of improving our parks there, creating new plazas and streets for enjoyment, recreation and celebration opportunities as well. So I invite you to participate in this visioning exercise with the city staff and consultant team put together these concepts that reflect both the feedback from the first community workshop, and we will incorporate all the work feedback from this one. So my view is robust community engagement is essential to creating a better plan for the future of our downtown. So in closing, I just want to thank all of you for your continued participation. City staff and the consultant team are looking forward to working with you to create a plan that tackles the current challenges and creates a downtown that captures your hopes and visions. So thank you all for joining. I'm so happy that we have so many people joining tonight, and I hope you'll stay connected and continue to participate throughout the life of this project. And so I'll turn it back over to Lisa. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for joining us to kick us off. Okay, so we want to dive in. So the agenda for tonight consists of three main parts. We want to provide an overview and a reminder on the scope of the downtown specific plan project. Some of you might be new, some of you have continued to follow along, but we just want to set the stage so everyone can kind of see where we're at and what the overarching goal of this project is. Then we will move into a deep dive on the urban design and placemaking concepts that, as the mayor just mentioned, that will focus on the 700 block of Laurel Street, the public spaces, all the spaces in between the buildings, the streets, etc., such as plazas and parks. We'll be looking at that. And then we also want to focus on our alleyways. They're a key part of that public realm component that this specific plan will be addressing. And then finally, we're going to be wrapping it up with next steps and a little bit of a debrief on the schedule, the overall schedule. So now let's start with an overview and reminder of the scope of the downtown planning project. So as the mayor mentioned, the project stems from a city council strategic goal to ensure that the downtown meets the needs of the community now and into the future. And like the mayor mentioned, this project was really born out of the pandemic and the obvious changes that were made to ensure that the livelihood of the downtown continued. That's how this project was born. And we kicked it off almost a year ago, in fact, in March 2022. And the project is on track to be completed approximately 1 year from now, or by March 2024. So developing this plan is essentially broken down into 5 different phases. And we are right now at the end of our second phase, which consists of developing conceptual options with the community. In the third phase, we will seek to be, refining these options and develop a preferred and community shared vision for the downtown. And then the fourth phase will focus on actually writing the plan itself, writing the policies, standards, and all of the strategies that will really bring this plan to life, including some financial strategies as well. And then the final or fifth phase of the plan involves preparing an environmental impact report for the project, and then bringing the plan forward to the Planning and Transportation Commission for a recommendation, and then to City Council for their consideration of adoption. The specific plan boundaries include Holly Street to the north, Greenwood Avenue to the south, El Camino Real to the east, and then Walnut Street to the west. The project also includes the streets leading to the Civic Center. So those streets include San Carlos Avenue, Cherry, Elm, and Chestnut, which are shown here as the green dotted line. So this boundary and the areas along the green dotted line encompass the focus of our work. So the goal of the project is to prepare, what we have been calling a specific plan. And this is specific language out of California planning law. And I will talk about that in just a moment. But just to kind of orient you on how this fits in the overarching regulations within the city of San Carlos, I do want to mention a couple of other documents. So the main regulatory document for cities across California are referred to as a general plan. And then the general plan's implementing companion is the zoning ordinance. So general plans are essentially 20 to 30-year policy documents, and they contain the overarching goals. They guide decision-making through establishing policies, and then they direct actions through their objectives. And then the zoning, what the zoning does is that it sets forth allowable land uses where certain uses are allowed, and then provides accompanying regulatory controls for their intensities, such as density or floor area ratios, where the buildings should be positioned, how much parking or landscaping should be provided. These are often referred to as development standards. So what specific plans do, and they are again established through California planning law, is that they allow cities to focus on a specific area or to do a deeper dive into a general location or a targeted location, I should say, where it's necessary to have more specific instructions for how development should take place. So this would mean that for any new development taking place in downtown or any public improvements that would occur within the downtown plan regarding roads, parks, or other aspects of that public realm, they would need to be consistent with this specific plan. So that's the overarching regulatory framework of the planning document that we want to prepare as part of our 2-year exercise with the community. So for San Carlos's downtown specific plan, we are going to be focusing on both the public realm and the private realm. So the private realm, or the domain of the private realm, really consists of all the privately owned land within the downtown specific plan boundary. And then the public realm consists of the sidewalks, the streets, the alleys, the public walkways or paseos. It includes parks and plazas. So as we look at what our desires are for these public spaces, the plan will establish feasible actions and programs to bring the vision to life. And the plan will also establish the process and procedures for proposed developments within the downtown plan. So to date, we've had quite a bit of public engagement taking place already, and that continues obviously with tonight's workshop. So since the project kicked off, we've had a great deal of public engagement, and we started by reaching out to property and business owners and staff from public agencies such as Samtrans and other service providers. We also had meetings, one-on-one meetings with each of our council members. We formed a 19-member Citizens Advisory Committee, and we've had 4 meetings with this group so far. In August of last year, we held our first community-wide workshop, and some of you might have attended that. Hopefully you have. And for those that are new, we welcome you. But we had a great kickoff, a great community-wide workshop that was well attended in August of last year. And then tonight we continue to receive and have input from the community and continue our dialogue. And in addition to that, we hosted an online mapping activity, and we collected almost 500 individual comments from you all. And most of the comments were centered on mobility. And this has to do with the ways in which we have access to and move throughout the downtown and the qualities of that experience. We also received many other comments about streets and public spaces. And all of this feedback helps to shape development of the specific plan and ensures that we consider all perspectives. So what we actually heard from the community to date is that there is a desire for more beautification of the street, to look at landscaping and look at ways in which we can make our current closure more attractive and possibly permanent. We've heard a lot of feedback on making the street closure be permanent, and we'll talk about that tonight. We also heard that there's more desire, there's a sincere desire to create outdoor gathering spaces and more places for people to sit and enjoy their lunches or to have a conversation. And that those seating areas not necessarily be associated with a restaurant, but really be accessible to all to come and enjoy, whether you bring your own lunch to work or you want to get takeout from another restaurant and join your friends somewhere else. There was a lot of comment about those specific aspects. Certainly, we've heard a lot, and we're very aware that our alleys definitely need some work. So there was a lot of support and discussion how our alleys can be beautified and how they can serve as a central mobility space for the downtown. And then improving sidewalks. It's clear that we need more space for ourselves, for our friends, for strollers, for dogs, for everything that wants to occur in that public space to take place. through the community engagement process, we've asked, participants whether they could, if they could describe San Carlos in one word, what would that be? And this is what we heard. We heard a lot of positive feedback that our downtown is very vibrant already, that it's charming, but also that, there's room for improvement, that some things are outdated and there's safety concerns. So I think my slides are advancing themselves, or maybe somebody else is a co-host and is helping me out to go faster. So I'll take that as a cue. Let me move along. So to kick us off into the content for tonight's workshop, we want to take a pause and invite everyone to allow some creativity to be brought forward, to be inspired, to allow you to be inspired by some images that we want to share. The images that we're going to be sharing tonight don't mean that these are, ideas or concepts that we want you to consider to be in this plan per se, but they're really providing a wide range of different ideas for what the downtown can become. And so they serve as inspirational offerings, if you will. So I'm going to take a moment and walk us through these, and I invite you to just take a moment to digest them, think about them, allow yourselves to be inspired as we move forward into our conversation this evening. So here's our first slide, and a lot of these images are showing different ideas for public gathering spaces in different cities, similar but executed in different ways, and for different activities to take place, whether it's watching a movie together during family night or friends night at the movies, whether it's watching a performance, an outdoor theater or pop-up event. Other options include very different ways in which you can engage and actually promote some activity to take place. There's also different forms of public plazas centered around office spaces or everyday needs. And then fountains serving as a means, as a focal point to bring people together into the main part of a plaza. And then different ways in which people can gather outdoors and share coffee, conversations, come together. And then different ways to enhance aesthetically the public areas that we maneuver through. So let me take a pause for a moment. Is somebody advancing the slides? Because they kind of seem to be going automatic.
Lisa, I am not. And
Okay.
you and I are the only people with host and co-host authority, and I am not. So.
Okay, I just wanted to double check on that, and just a little behind the scenes information for the community. I'm the one that's supposed to have control of the slides, but they were going through pretty quickly. So I apologize if that last bit went a little fast. So I'm really keeping my hand on the control right now. So having just shared some of those images with you all, we want to ask you 5 questions, and we're going to pose these questions right here on the screen. And then we're going to ask you to use your phones to scan a QR code or type them into a different browser, whereby you can respond to these questions. Because there's just 5 and they're pretty easy to respond to, but we wanted to take just a minute to explain what we're going to be asking. So the first question is, as you looked at these photos, and if you could keep in mind other places that you've been, that you love, downtown places or other cities that have certain spaces or places that you've absolutely enjoyed yourself in, what, in your opinion, was the most, what would be the most important element or feature that you would like to see incorporated into this downtown vision? That's going to be a one-word response. The second question is that we want you to think back to some of your most unforgettable experiences in the places that you enjoy, the cities or downtowns. And we want you to tell us, what about that space was it that made it unforgettable? What was the experience like? How did it make you feel? If you can kind of describe that in one word. I know that's challenging, but it's hard to kind of get a bunch of sentences on the screen. So the one word cloud really helps us to kind of manage that. So these are 2 questions that we want to ask you. The third question, we want to start finding out why you currently go to downtown, whether it's to eat, drink, shop, whether you work downtown, whether you go to visit the dentist or get your nails done or drop off your dry cleaning or visit a tailor, or if you only go down to for the farmers market or special events such as the Art and Wine Fair, Goblin Walk, etc. Let us know. Maybe you go through the downtown just because it's on your way to catch the train, or because you live in the downtown area. Or maybe you just like to stroll in downtown. We have a great downtown. Or maybe it's none of the reasons, but we do invite you to share with us your reasons for going downtown. And then we're also going to ask you a couple of additional questions about what draws you to downtown. And we also have been hearing many, many comments and support for closing the 700 block of Laurel Street permanently. So we want you to let us know if you agree with this or not. We're going to dive into a deeper conversation about that, but just to kind of kick us off and kind of see where we're at, we want to follow up and answer and have you respond to these questions. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Katya Dillman with RRM, who's going to guide us through this interactive activity. And then following your responses to this initial set of questions, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Jamie Williams with RRM, who's going to be walking us through the different options for downtown San Carlos. So Katya, please go ahead and take it away. Thank you.
Yes, hello. Good evening. I'm Katya with RRM, like Lisa said. And just like Lisa said, we're going to have you participate in answering these questions via a Slido poll. If you joined us in August, you might be familiar with this, or if you joined us in a different setting, you might be familiar with this. You have 2 options to participate. One is going to the website, which is Slido, SLIDO.com. And then entering this passcode that you see in front of you on this screen, and I also dropped it in the chat. The other option, if you have a smartphone nearby tonight, you can just scan this QR code and it will take you to directly to the poll. And then Lisa, if you are willing to stop sharing, I will start sharing thank you so much, as the poll options come in. And let me share here, and I'm going to go ahead and start. So you should see a question, yes, and this is the word cloud. Like Lisa said, after viewing all these inspirational photos and keeping in mind other places you have been, in your opinion, what is the most important element or feature you would like us to incorporate in the downtown vision? And we're asking for one word because we're kind of forcing some critical thinking, forcing some choices, and we'd like to see what you have to say.
And Katya, by the way, are the panelists intended to see the Slido results? Because right now we cannot see them.
You should be able to see them populating on the shared screen. Is that not what's happening?
I do not see them on the shared screen. And if my colleagues could verify whether they can or not.
I cannot either.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. So how about now?
Yes, now.
Great. Thank you. And we have about half of the attendees participating at this point in time. So we're going to give it a few more seconds, probably about 30 more seconds on this first question. So if you haven't responded yet, please do so. So I'm going to leave this question open. If you would like to still think about your word, or you're having some technical difficulties, which I have great appreciation for, since I wasn't even sharing my screen. I'm going to leave this question open, but I'm going to go ahead and take everyone to the next question, which Lisa read earlier as well. So when you think back to some of your most unforgettable experiences in the public realm, maybe in your travels or in another community nearby. What was it that made that space feel so unforgettable? And how did it make you feel? So if you could share a one-word answer again, that would be fantastic.
I just have to say, I love the live poll results.
I know, it's so fun. It's so fun to see what people are thinking, or in this particular case, feeling, or what they felt in the past.
And I saw that the first, the word cloud really populated. What was most common was gather. And as some of you may know, our logo is Downtown Together. And we talked about, should this be Downtown Together? And Megan will remember that one. So that's just a little shout out to Megan. But we're on the right track in terms of why we're doing this.
So I'm gonna go ahead and leave this question visible and open for about 15, 20 more seconds. Not all the participants have participated yet in this question. So I'm going to give you another beat before we move on to the next question, but it will remain open. Okay, thank you for this. Now, the next question is simply asking, why do you currently go to downtown San Carlos? This is really good for us to know and to understand. And you can select multiple options. You can really share with us all the reasons. You don't have to limit yourself to one choice. Again, I'm going to give you about 15 more seconds to think about your answers, but it looks like a lot of participants on tonight's Slido poll really enjoyed the restaurants in the downtown San Carlos area, as well as shopping and farmers markets and special events. We're going to turn our attention to one more word cloud, I believe. And again, we're going to ask for a one-word answer. So when you go to the 700 block today, what draws you there? Specifically, what is the reason you currently go to the 700 block? It's currently closed off. And if you go there specifically, what takes you there? So the previous question was more about the downtown San Carlos. In this question, we're really hoping you can focus your attention to the 700 block and share with us what it is about this one particular block that takes you there. Restaurants, that's fantastic. That seems to be the most common. So presumably everyone knows this, but just in case you don't. So with the word cloud, the size of the words is dependent on the number of responses. So the biggest words are the ones that have been entered most often. So it looks like restaurants right now is a big reason. The fact that it's car-free is a strong reason. That you get to walk on the street is less strong, but someone did enter it. And again, I'm going to give about 15 more seconds for this particular question prompt before we move on to the next question that I have for you in this question block. And one of the things that I'm going to mention just right now is we have one more question in this question section. It might be easier if you leave your Slido open and just toggle either to the just the general Zoom web browser, or just set your phone down for a few minutes. But there will be a few more sections of questions, and that turns out to be a tongue twister. And with that, we're going to go to
Katya,
the.
if I can interrupt, I just don't want participants to be frustrated. There's a couple of questions or comments about, or I guess these are in the question section, I'm making sure. But for some, they're saying that the chat is blocked. And I just want to clarify that participants are welcome to provide a comment through the chat and ask a question through the question feature, but the panelists see those, but just an open chat is not part of the function for tonight's meeting. So I just wanted to make that clarification. And also we have muted the microphones because we want to get through the presentation, and we're going to go through any kind of Q&A if we have the time at the end of the meeting. But how we're getting everyone's feedback is through your participation with the live polls, and then making comments through the chat feature and answering any questions you have. But throughout the course of this presentation, there are going to be pauses where we're asking for your direct feedback. So you'll see that as we move along. I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And with that, we're going to turn to the last question in this section of questions. And as Lisa mentioned earlier, this is just a really gut reaction, thumbs up, thumbs down. Later in our workshop tonight, in our presentation, we have lots of really rich information for you about what the various possibilities could be and what Laurel Street could look like. We have some concepts to show you, but as a general, like thumbs up, thumbs down, we just wanted to hear from you at this moment in time, whether or not you agree or disagree or support, I guess is a real thing, whether you support or do not support closing the 700 block of Laurel Street permanently. And at this moment in time, it looks like there's strong support for it. So I would like to allow for a few more seconds for a few more folks to respond. And then, as I mentioned, I'm going to stop sharing the Slido. I'm going to hand it back to my teammates, but we will be asking more questions later in the presentation. So maybe we just leave this open for now. We will be sharing the code and the QR code again. So if your preference is to close out of it, that's okay too. Okay, so as of right now, it looks like 76% of people who have voted support the closing Laurel Street permanently. And with this, Lisa, I think I'm going to end this portion of the questions, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Katya, I'm going to have to ask again. There seems to be continued confusion about the chat feature. So can we just take a minute to make sure that members that are attending can utilize the chat feature?
So this is set up as a webinar. So as a webinar, we have the Q&A feature, but we don't have the chat feature. The thing that I think, Lisa, you mentioned earlier, and that I really would like to assure people of, is that, you know, the entire project team is going to read all the Q&As, and so they'll be addressed. And even if it's not directly a question, but rather a comment, we're going to take that back and review it. But as a webinar, it
Okay.
is set up.
So for folks that want to make a comment or have something to share with us, please use the Q&A. We will be looking at that. So if the chat feature is not working, it sounds like the Q&A is open. So please do provide any comments or feedback through the Q&A feature on Zoom. So disregard what I said before, and I apologize if I didn't understand the operations. So let me go back and share my screen and we can continue. All right, please let me know when you all can see that. Can you see the full screen?
Yes, Lisa, I can. It's on the participate through Slido
Right.
slide, but we can see the full screen here. Thank you.
And now we're ready for Jamie, is that right? Urban design and placemaking concepts.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Hello, everybody. Jamie Williams here from RM Design Group. And next slide, I'm excited to go through a number of our preliminary ideas for you this evening to gather some additional feedback. Throughout the process, we started out with an extensive existing conditions, understanding of the project, meeting with folks, and developed some opportunity attributes that are associated with different modes of mobility, walking, bicycling, driving, parking, and placemaking. And so tonight's focus is really on those modes. Next slide. And we're really going to focus on just 3 primary areas. The opportunities that are surrounding public space in the downtown, alley improvements, and then the street closure for the 700 block. Next slide. So this first series of images is about the existing public space in Harrington Park, as well as a potential future public space at its Laurel Wheeler Plaza. Next slide. We're going to focus initially on Laurel Plaza, which is by Wheeler Plaza, and there's a few images that show the potential of what it could be. In the future, it's a current parking lot, but in the future, that space could be repurposed with a smaller plaza space with additional restaurants and retail that open up to it. You can see in the images movable furniture and lighting and landscaping. Or that space may be redeveloped. Next slide. As a much larger space with public art features or additional landscaping. So these are just images to demonstrate what the future could be like. Next slide. The second area is Harrington Park, and Harrington Park is a great space right now. It's right on the 700 block. It's got a lot of natural landscaping, but it is a little bit closed off. There's pretty thick tree canopy that makes it a little bit dark. There's a bandstand that's in the back of it that kind of limits your ability to connect through to the parking and the area behind. So we're going to show you 3 concepts. One that's really a park plaza option, one that's all plaza, and one that is really focusing on music and entertainment. Again, these are just to help daylight the potential and the future of this space. So our first concept is this park plaza option, and you can tell this is looking down. It's a plan view, and there's a lot of elements shown here. Removing some of that tree canopy and replacing that with some wood beams and lighting that allows light to go into the space. Some natural grass and play area towards the back where her cursor is, as well as vines and screening on the walls. A small fountain you can hear the noise and it brings you into that space, as well as some movable furniture, tables, chairs, and umbrellas. The next concept, these are some illustrations and graphics and photos that really show what that could be. Places for your children to play while you could sit and have your lunch on the lawn, or perhaps a fountain that you can participate and climb on and the like. This next concept would be really represented if you were to permanently close the 700 block of Laurel, because as you can see in this graphic, the plaza really bleeds out into that street and creates a fountain right at the intersection, a large, attractive entryway into Harrington Park. It's a space where you could have larger events. There's a tree kind of canopy in the back that you can see here, as well as preserving the memorial wall or creating an art wall between the buildings. And additionally, providing better alley access and wayfinding. Next slide. These are some images of what that space could look like. Next slide. And the last concept is really taking that interest in keeping music and entertainment downtown, but moving that stage area from the back where it's locked in and putting it on the side so that you can have people surround it and fill the space with, more room for people to fill the space. This shows these triangular shapes or perhaps some colorful shade sails that provide some shade, but still a lot more light in. There's also lighting, bistro lighting, and alley access that are presented as part of this as well. Here's some images of what that space could look like. So these examples all highlight a number of attributes that we're going to kind of get your preferences on in a minute. So, they show an opportunity for a fountain or a water feature, movable furniture, lawn or landscaping, where you can lounge and throw down a blanket, or areas where children can play, a stage and music, open air with shade covering, tree canopy, lighting, and public art. Lisa? What do you think? So now I think we're going to dig in. I'll read through the questions here. But what is your highest priority for this public space? In this one, you will select one answer, but we're going to be asking you if you would like to go there to enjoy the public space for a sense of community. I want to go somewhere with my kids. I want to be able to eat lunch outside, or I would like events and programs. So this is the first question we're going to be asking you in the Slido, as well as the second question, which is a ranking question. Katja's going to tell you how that works. But essentially that list I just went through, we're going to help have you prioritize your interest in each of those features. Next slide. And then what you'd like to see more of. And that question, you're going to be able to check as many of these things that are interesting to you. So you'd like to have outdoor dining or street furnishings. That's places to sit, trash cans, bicycle parking, as well as plazas, public art, wayfinding. Wayfinding is signage that helps. It's beautiful signage that helps you navigate your way through downtown. Where do you get to the alley? How do you get down to the plaza? As well as street trees, bicycle parking, and you can select other as well. And then the final question, I think, is what types of programs or entertainment would you like to see downtown? So music, and you can again select all that apply. So musical events, kid-friendly programs, theaters and performances and pop-up events, culture and art exhibits, movies on the plaza or square, activities such as yoga or Tai Chi, or large scale games like chess, backgammon, or game night in the space.
So just like the previous time, we're going to ask you to navigate to the Slido website or on your phone. And this time, hopefully, I'm actually sharing my screen. And then we're going to start off with the first question that Jamie read off. What is your highest priority for public spaces in the downtown area? And we're asking that we just select one because we really want to get a sense of what is most important. So it looks like as of right now, with about half of the people responding, there's a strong desire for just a really enjoyable public space that offers a sense of community. A space where you can go, be part of your community, but you don't have any obligation to purchase an expensive coffee or a lunch or anything to allow you to participate in that space, but you can just go and be in that space. I'm going to give this about 5 more seconds before I turn to the next question. And the next question is this ranking question. So if you are on your phone, it's a little bit tricky. What I would encourage you to do on your phone is to select the choices by order of priority to you. And then after you've taken a look at it, before you submit it, rearrange it. By hitting on your phone, by hitting the little, it's like an up arrow, 2 dashes and a down arrow, that will take that choice out of the queue and you can re-rank it. Or if you tap on it and, firmly hold down, you can slide that answer choice up and down. We're going to give this a little bit of time because it's a little bit trickier and you need to do a little bit more thinking. So I'm going to save my commentary for a few moments while you think about ranking the amenities in the order of importance to you. And I believe Jamie covered this, or Lisa. Tree canopy is just a really nice way of saying enjoying the shade of the trees, of the leaves and the branches, the shade they provide and create. And bistro lighting is the little sparkly lights that make it real atmospheric. They have a couple different other names. Some people call them fairy lights. Some people call them backyard lights. They have a different terms, but they're essentially on a string and it's soft light. And it looks like we're getting a really solid response. But like I said, if you're on your phone and you're trying to re-rank, then you really kind of have to add a little pressure to really hold down on the answer choices and then slide your finger up and down with that choice to move it into a different location. I'm gonna give maybe another 30 seconds or so. We have a strong response rate, but a little bit lower than the previous questions. And I think it probably just has to do with thinking this through. So as of right now, it looks like tree canopy is the most important. The second is just having open air with some shade. So it seems like there's a strong desire for shade in general. The third amenity that's most important is some sort of lawn or landscaping, and the fourth is having publicly available furniture, but that it's not fixed, that you can change the grouping. You have less friends or more friends, or you can move it around, or the shade has changed, so you can move the little bistro table into the shade. And it also seems like there's a desire for a stage as well as bistro lighting. Those two are tied. So the atmospheric lighting and then a music venue or a stage. I'm going to take us to the next question. And this question is a question about what would you like to see more of in downtown? So there are outdoor dining opportunities, there are street furnishing, but what would you like more of? And you're allowed to select all that apply, so you're not forced to limit your choices. I like it when there's a tie and then like 5 seconds later, the tie is broken because someone else has submitted their response. So we have really strong showings for a plaza or multiple plazas, for street trees, street furniture, and public art. And with that, I'm going to take us to the last question of this section. And this one is a multiple choice question. You get to select all that apply, and it speaks directly to the programming and the entertainment. So we just talked about amenities, and now we're talking about events, programs, entertainment. So this is fantastic. This is great. It seems like there's a strong desire for more music events in the downtown, along with more cultural events, cultural exhibits and art exhibits with performances, pop-up performances, and also a desire for movies on the plaza or the square. I am going to stop the Slido poll at this time. We will have another set of questions for you. So again, I invite you to keep this open, or we can always come back to it. I have stopped sharing my screen.
Okay, Katya, I think you can see my screen again, which is the
Correct.
Slido QR code. And now we're going to move on to the next topic. And so feel free to take it away.
All right, we are going to talk about alley improvements. At the very beginning of this workshop, Lisa shared with you what we've heard from the community through our different community events and community outreach processes. And one of the things that we heard from you was a desire for alley improvements. Downtown has a very strong alley network. It goes past Arroyo, but essentially this is the core, and this is the alley network symbolized in yellow with black hashes. And then publicly available parking is in the light blue. And so you can see that there is a communication between the parking and alley network and the alley network and Laurel, the 600, 700, and 800 block. What we heard from you is that today, the current state of the alleys can feel a little bit confusing. There's a lack of signage. So people who know downtown San Carlos really well can navigate the alleys, can even park adjacent to the alleys and walk in the alleys and know where they're going. But visitors and people that don't come down so often feel a little bit lost and a lack of signage. We've also heard that there's a lack of lighting, which at times can feel unsafe. That there is clutter from individual trash receptacles or bins. This isn't limited to trash. It can include recycling bins as well, but that can feel cluttered. That as a pedestrian, when you're navigating the alleys, your path of travel isn't always a straight line or necessarily clear from other items in the alleyway. Service and delivery occurs in the alleys, and sometimes there can be congestion with multiple delivery trucks who would like to park and deliver items, but this causes a backup of some sort. There is confusion about what parking is available to the public to just go and participate with life on Laurel Street versus what is private parking and is really tied to a specific destination. We've also heard that there's a lack or there's minimal handicapped accessible parking. This is also known as ADA parking, and a lack of bike parking and generally a lack of bicycle connectivity. This section, we're proposing enhancements, and this is really just a moment to take a beat in this presentation to let you know we've heard you. We have brainstormed ideas, and we're going to share them with you. It's a little bit less of asking for feedback on this particular section, but you're welcome to drop some ideas and comments into Q&A if you would like. But what we are proposing is a wayfinding system. Oh, if you could go back, sorry, I was speaking a little slowly. We're proposing a wayfinding system that pedestrians really know that they have a right to be in the alleys and where they should be walking. We would like to designate delivery areas and areas for trash receptacles and clearly mark and denote what is publicly available parking, clearly mark and denote ADA parking, as well as bicycle parking, and make it clear for cyclists to move through the alley if they choose to. We also really heard this concern about lighting, and one of the proposed enhancement would be pedestrian scale lighting or street lighting. And then there's an opportunity to explore alley art or a mural program. There are cities who partner with artists in the community, and they get to have a dedicated spot on the alley where they can display their art. So these ideas are ideas that we're thinking about. Next slide. So this is on the key map is on the left, and the little orange square shows you where kind of an example of a location where we're thinking. This particular location is El Camino Real Alley from Laurel Street. The existing has the orange line showing you where you're at, and the proposed is directly next to it. So opportunities would be gateway features, special parking lot pavement, the level sidewalk crossing, and a rolled curb, so it feels more like a pedestrian space versus a car space. Mural wall opportunities, decorative street lights, and then truncated domes as well. Next slide. Again, the key map on the left, the little orange square shows you where you're at on Laurel Street. This is between Laurel and Walnut in that alley. And the image on the bottom left shows you the way it is today. It's a public parking lot. And then the image on the right shows you what it could be with a really designated crosswalk, stripe, and ramp, a pedestrian crossing sign. And then in the back, you see those little green signs, and those could be wayfinding signs. Next slide. Again, the key map shows you where we are kind of in the Laurel. And this particular location is the parking lot between the Bank of America and the US Bank buildings. And the proposed example on the bottom right shows you how you could really have this designated path of travel for pedestrians. So it would be flush concrete edges, special parking lot pavement, wayfinding. Again, you have the wayfinding opportunities and the clearly marked pedestrian signs. The picture on the top right shows you an example of wayfinding that shows you the distance in block numbers. Next slide, please. And again, I believe this is our final example, showing you where you are in an alley near Cherry Street and Laurel Street. And it shows you an example of an alley mural. And again, it has the decorative wayfinding signage, the special paving, lighting, the rolled curb, so it becomes more of a pedestrian space. And as I mentioned, the mural wall opportunity. And then one more slide, please. And this shows you, the top left shows you an example. These behind those brown doors are all the trash receptacles, trash and recycling, and it's really tucked away. It's really architecturally attractive, but it also really clears out the clutter from the alleys. And then we've provided along this theme of visioning and imagining and just having beautiful examples. There's 2 beautiful examples of alleys. With this, I'm going to turn it over to Jamie to talk specifically about Laurel Street.
So as you can see, a lot of thought has gone into what's behind the scenes, and that allows us to really focus on Laurel Street. Specifically tonight, we're looking at the 700 block. That's the block that's currently closed to vehicles. We will ultimately be talking about the 600 and 800 blocks, but we want to really set the tone and get a clear picture of what's happening on the 700 to help inform that. Next slide. So tonight, I'm going to go through 4 different options. We're going to ask you at the end of this to provide some feedback on your preference related to each of these options. So the options are called flexible closure option, which I'll go through in much more detail, but it's a more flexible option, hence the name. The widened sidewalk option, a plaza option, and the pre-2020 option. The first option is shown here as the most flexible alternative. It is leaving the sidewalk and the curbs and the roadway as it is today, but allowing for additional sprucing up of new furnishings, new lighting, new trees, as well as utilizing the street for events or outdoor dining and the like. The reason it's flexible is because you could do that for a short time, maybe a Friday, Saturday. You could do it like it is today, where it's closed to cars all the time, but you still have that opportunity someday down the road to go back and allow cars to move on that street. Next slide. These are some photos of what that could look like. So the advantage of this particular option is that, as I said, it's very flexible. It allows for a variety of businesses to activate the space within the street. It facilitates community building, and it improves pedestrian access. It does eliminate the existing 63 parking spaces that are on that block. They're not being used today, but it repeats that condition. It does lack the full benefits of a permanent street closure, which I'll be talking to you next about. And it does provide for intermittent traffic because sometimes it's open, sometimes it's closed. That's an option. Next slide. The second option is what we're calling the widened sidewalk option. In this option, we're allowing for cars and parking within the right of way, but we're eliminating the diagonal parking. We're bringing it together with parallel parking, and we're expanding those sidewalks to be much wider, up to 16 feet. That'll allow for more space for outdoor dining on the sidewalk within the curb and in front of the storefronts. It'll also allow for people to walk in front of the storefronts as opposed to being put into the street. So it just gives a little more space as you're walking through. Next slide. These are some examples of what that could look like. So again, expanded sidewalks allow for more street furnishing and lighting, a little more room for pedestrians to walk next to the retail, allows for sidewalk dining, and maintains vehicles and parking within the roadway. It is not as large as, it's a trade-off because it's not as large as a full plaza or closed street option. And converting those diagonal to parallel results in about 20 spaces reduced. The third option is the go for it option. This is really taking out all of the curbs and gutters and sidewalks and creating a large 50-foot pedestrian plaza that is designed for multi-purpose. It's not saving room for cars ever. It's just really redesigning that to be a downtown destination. Next slide. These are some examples from Little Italy and other places where that roadway has been closed and is only open for pedestrians and folks walking their bicycles through. This is the most dedicated community space. It is a true destination space. It again allows for more opportunities for people to walk by the stores, to enjoy the dining and the public space. And there's no limit on what can happen within that area. Public art, more trees, more lighting and the like. Again, there'll be 63 spaces that are removed. Delivery will be required from the alley as it is today. There is not any vehicular motorist visibility, meaning people don't drive by. There is minor traffic disruption similar to today, and there is potential for emergency access delays, although if it's permanent, the fire department and the like will know how to get there. Next slide. The last option is just to go back pre-2020, what it used to be, leave the diagonal parking, leave the cars, and allow for the outdoor dining to be on the sidewalk in the capacity that is there today. So the advantage to this is no lack of parking, no impact. The motorists are all using the same. And there's no user confusion, meaning everybody kind of knows what to expect because it's the way it's always been. The trade-off is you lose that community asset, you lose the opportunity for additional outdoor dining, and you lose the flexibility of how that space can be used. So with that, we are going to ask you, this is our final set of questions, and we're going to go through and give you a chance to select your preferred option of these 4 choices. And then that's the first question. The second question is really about what would the future look like? Why would you go there more often? And you get to select 2 answers for this. You would go downtown more often if there was a permanent plaza or gathering space, if there were wider sidewalks with adjacent parking, if you could drive down the 700 block like before, or for farmers and market or other cool and fun events, or for other reasons. Hello.
So
we're gonna-
Katya, I think everybody has their Slido open still, but just in case, here's the QR code again. And I will go ahead and stop share and turn it over to you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And let me share my screen. Great. So I know Jamie just talked about this, but it's a lot of information. The plaza option is the one that really converts the street to a full plaza, and there would be no more curb and gutter. The widened sidewalks brings out the sidewalks, but still allows for parallel parking and traffic in both directions. The flexible closure is very similar today, where you could keep the curb and gutter and close it for events or close it in a couple of years, for a couple of years. And then the pre-2020 option is, it would just be business as usual, as it used to be before the pandemic. So angled parking, cars, a regular size sidewalk, by which I mean the sidewalk width that currently exists in that area. And I think we've got one more question. And this is a multiple choice question. It permits you to select 2 options. And we would like to know what would make you go downtown often, or I should say, what would invite you to go downtown more often? If you select other, I'd invite you to just put Q11 in the question and answer, and then just enter the other, whatever your other reason is. And then we'll be able to gain some insight into what you were thinking by reviewing the questions and answers later. So like I said, if you just write Q11, we'll understand that means the 11th question of this Slido poll. And if you just enter whatever your other is, whatever would bring you downtown, would invite you downtown, then we'll be able to hold on to that information as well and gain insight to that. And as of right now, we have a really strong response rate. I'm going to leave it out for just a few more seconds since this is the last poll question of the night. And with this, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Lisa. And I'm going to stop the poll and I'm going to hand it back to you.
Great, thank you, Katya. And I will go ahead and keep us moving along here. So we're doing pretty good on time. I want to walk us through some next steps so that folks know what's going to happen next after tonight's meeting. First of all, we do want to share that we understand that folks that may have signed up, some things might have come up and they weren't able to attend tonight, or for other reasons, they weren't able to make it to tonight's workshop. And because we are at a stage where we're really collecting a lot of very important and critical feedback for how this plan is going to be shaped, it's really important that we hear from everyone. So we're going to be providing a casual drop-in, no registration required opportunity to connect with staff. A lot of the diagrams and images that were shown here tonight at tonight's workshop are going to be provided at an open house that we are hosting. Advanced Planning City staff will be hosting this open house on Saturday, March 4th from 10 to noon. This will be locally held at the San Carlos Library, located at 610 Elm Street on the 2nd floor. So the library opens right at 10 o'clock. So if you come right then and make your way up to the 2nd floor, you can take the stairs, or there is an elevator that will take you upstairs to the community room, where you'll be able to kind of look more closely at these images. And certainly if you have friends and neighbors and people that you know are really interested, please pass along this information to them. We will be sending out an announcement about this Coffee and Comments opportunity through our regular email sign-up list. So for any of you that haven't signed up via email, please remember to do so that you can be notified for any updates, information, or communication that we want to share with all of you. So this is coming up as an opportunity for those who couldn't make it to give us their feedback. So I wanted to make sure I shared that with all of you. And then in addition to that, we also are providing an opportunity to provide those who also didn't make it to the workshop with an online survey. So similar to what we did last time where we had the online mapping tool provided for you all to drop comments in, we are going to be providing an online survey. So the survey questions will be similar, or not similar, but the same as tonight's questions that were presented. And we encourage folks that haven't participated to take part in that survey. So the survey will be available on the project website and will be up from March 1st through April 1st to gather everyone's feedback before we fine tune these concepts and continue to refine those and bring them forward. So just as a reminder, we are completing the second phase of the work that that's in front of us to develop this vision, this shared vision for the downtown. What's going to happen next is that we're going to move into phase 3 and develop a preferred vision, kind of the one that really starts to kind of take shape and kind of essentially is essentially how the plan will be centered upon, what the plan will be centered upon. So what we are concluding right now is looking at these very initial urban design and placemaking concepts. We presented them to our advisory committee on January 25th. We had our meeting tonight. We received a lot of good feedback. We're going to have an open house opportunity for those who couldn't make it. Like I mentioned, we'll have our second online survey available. And then we're going to take all of this feedback and these initial concepts to our Planning and Transportation Commission. We're aiming for late March, and then we will share that also with the City Council. With all of this additional feedback that we've received, we're going to be able to fine tune these concepts and integrate more components that we need to talk about and prepare a preferred concept to share with the community. Once we have that preferred concept in place, we're going to do all of this again. We're going to be meeting with our advisory committee. We're going to be having another community workshop. We're going to have other opportunities for folks to weigh in on that preferred concept, and then take all of that once again to the Planning Commission and City Council, get their feedback and overall community buy-in so we can start writing the actual specific plan. So before we even get to goals and policies, we need to kind of establish this community shared vision for the future of our downtown. So that's kind of in a nutshell where we are headed next. And at this time, we do have about 10 minutes left over, and I kind of wasn't thinking we would be able to do that because there was a lot of information presented tonight. But we do want to open up the floor and see if you have any questions, burning questions that you need to ask, or things that you want to share with us for consideration before we close tonight's workshop. So I will ask Katya for some assistance to help navigate any questions that people have for tonight. And so I think what we want to do is invite folks to raise their hands. Is that right, Katya? And we will be able to see raised hands, and we can call on you, and then we will start seeing what we can do to answer your questions. So with that, let's go ahead and get started just for the next 10 minutes.
Kelly, I'm going to ask you to unmute. Feel free to share your question, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. My question is, how ultimately does it get decided if the 700 block will remain closed? Is it a city council vote? Is it a vote to the citizens? Is it this council? And then also on the plaza option, it didn't show how the existing restaurant space for outdoor dining would be incorporated.
Hi, Ellie. My name is Lisa. I'm going to go ahead and answer your first question. So in terms of how it's going to get decided, what happens ultimately with the 700 block, the way that it gets answered is actually happening even tonight. We're gathering all of the community's feedback. We'll continue to gather feedback. And what we will do is we will take all of that forward to the decision-making bodies in adopting a specific plan. The way that it usually occurs, in just kind of like an overarching summary, is a lot of community engagement. We want to hear from the community what your preferences are. And then we would take all of that feedback to the decision makers. The decision makers for this specific plan include the Planning and Transportation Commission. They are a recommending body to the City Council on policy planning. So we would take it forward to the Planning Commission. We would get them to weigh in. They would hear more public comments, and then the City Council would ultimately consider adoption of the specific plan. So every step along the way helps shape what the specific plan will contain. So over the next 6 months, it's going to be a kind of a key civic engagement opportunity to really, for the community to provide their input on ultimately what should happen and how it should happen, what actually should take place for the 700 block. So there's not any kind of vote that will take place. This is all through a community dialogue process. And then in response to your second question, about the plaza option, I'm going to ask Jamie if she can answer that.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, to add on to Lisa's comments, the specific plan is a policy document that makes recommendations. So it'll make a recommendation for a future action of what that 700 block can look like. Then there will be a second phase that's if there's any change that's to occur, that will also be a civic engagement process and will result in design concepts and then ultimately construction documents and implementation. So the details will be likely worked out through that second phase. The specific plan will really say what's the purpose and intent of this area and show a vision for it. And then the actual design and implementation will come later.
Okay, and Sarah Kelsey, it looks like you have a question. I'm going to
Yes.
ask you to unmute.
Okay, I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yep. thank you.
Okay, my question is this. In terms of access to downtown safely, a number of the routes from the east to and from the east side of the El Camino Real entail crossing the El Camino Real, and some of our crossings just don't feel so safe, particularly the one at Holly Street and El Camino. And in other forums where I've raised this, I've been told that it's Caltrans that has the last word on the El Camino, and we don't have a lot of say as a city. And I'm wondering if, as part of this downtown plan, will we be coordinating with Caltrans or interacting? The new intersection at Cherry, when they built that new entrance, feels much safer. The crossing is really visible and easy, but some of the other crossings at Britain and at Arroyo and at Holly just don't feel nearly so safe. And I don't know how we can raise that with Caltrans, or is there a different way for us to make this a clear concern? Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Great observation, and I can't agree with you more. El Camino Real needs to be tamed somewhat to be more safe for pedestrians and to really kind of enhance and improve those crossings. So yes, we are connected with Caltrans in the sense that we've reached out to them as one of our focus groups that we met with, and so we will be working on developing policies and guidance for how El Camino Real can be made into a safer space. There's different tools that we have in our toolbox that will aim to kind of channel those efforts and kind of create some synergy to actually make that happen. We do have a bicycle and pedestrian master plan that was recently adopted. That's being considered and factored into the specific plan process. We will continue to meet with Caltrans staff and share with them the concepts and vision for how we want El Camino Real to the quality of that experience to be in our city. And then also I will say that there's other, planning documents or regulatory documents that help to improve or will guide future improvements on El Camino Real, such as having robust setbacks from the curb to the building face for any new development on El Camino Real. We recently secured and adopted a new standard that buildings need to be set back 20 feet so that you can have a large enough space to walk upon along El Camino Real. So there's several factors in place that will help to make that more pedestrian friendly street, but it will take effort and it will take, some collaboration. So your observation is correct that there needs to be continued conversations and collaborations with Caltrans for that.
And can I just ask one more little piece, which is I continue to be very worried about where Holly and El Camino meet and the backup of the right-hand turning people from El Camino onto to go eastbound on Holly, because that is, I feel like it's an accident waiting to be happen with any pedestrian crossing there, because the people are waiting for such a long time to turn and they are getting impatient and their visibility is not great because of the downhill grade on the street and the crosswalk there. So I just feel like it's got to be more urgent than some slow planning through the next year or 2 years or 3 years. That one is really a worry to me.
Thank you for bringing our attention to that, and we will make sure to share that with our public works and city engineer and traffic engineer as well.
Thank you so much.
Richard, I'd like to ask you to unmute and go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, thank you so much for informative and well-planned and orchestrated session inviting vibrant feedback from the community. With that in mind, my question centers on the tree-lined street that we have today. When I first moved to the community more than 30 years ago, one of the first things they did was remove trees that had been there for 50 years. At this point, given the planning that you're sharing with us and the considerations, what boundaries and objectives have we set for preserving the heritage trees that have matured to this point now on the street?
Great question. Some folks here in the room may be aware that the city recently updated its tree preservation ordinance. So we do have some new regulations in place, the aim of doing just that, of preserving our heritage trees, the trees that are identified as being protected within the city of San Carlos. And in addition to that, and Jamie can add to this, our specific plan, one of the key components that it will be looking at is the streetscape, which includes street trees and recognizing that they're a critical piece. And I think we all saw that very clearly in tonight's responses, that they are a key piece and component of the downtown area. The downtown is kind of like our most urbanized area with a lot of shops, restaurants, different uses, kind of, in a very tightly knit space. And that trees are really adding to the comfort and attractiveness to the area. So we would be absolutely remiss if we did not pay attention to trees in the downtown. And so I would invite you maybe to share with us your email in the Q&A feature. We can certainly, it sounds like you're very interested in protecting the protection of trees, and we can certainly share with you some information or handouts about what the city is doing to preserve trees in the downtown. And then Jamie, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I guess I would just add maybe a little bit of assurance. And, I didn't get to tell you much about RM Design Group. We're a consulting firm, but we are a multidisciplinary firm. And we have a full bore landscape architecture discipline as part of our firm, along with planners and architects. We have an arborist, civil engineers. And so this plan, what I think is unique and special is that it really takes to light with the right experts on what are the attributes of downtown that make it better and where can we enhance that. And I would say that the city was very mindful in the in beautification and trees by including even the streets that go up to City Hall, because there are, through good design, opportunities to even add to the trees within the downtown, in addition to preserving those special ones.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. Okay, I want to be mindful of everybody's time. We promised we'd end tonight's meeting at 8:30 and we're just at 8:31. Thank you for those, who asked us some questions, and I'm sure there was more hands we didn't get to, but hopefully you have typed in your most burning questions into the Q&A. We are going to be looking at those very closely, and we'll be capturing some of the main things and be putting together an FAQ. And if you have any follow-up, observations or any feedback that you want to give us along the way, even about how we're conducting this meeting, the time that this meeting is being held at, we invite you to, please communicate with us. And at the bottom of the screen here, you can see the way in which you can do that. Just shoot out an email to advanceplanning@thecityofsancarlos.org. That goes to me and a couple of other staff who are key staff members on this project, and we will answer your questions. We want to keep the dialogue open, so I don't want anyone to feel like they're walking away without having been heard. So please do continue to reach out to us, and we will be responding to your questions. So with that, I just want to say once again, thank you to everyone for spending an hour and a half of your time with us tonight. We really appreciate it. We can't do this plan without you. Please sign up if you haven't. We're going to use email to communicate, to continue to communicate with you along the way. So with that, thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure to facilitate this presentation tonight, and we hope to hear from you. Thanks again. Good night.
I'm going to echo Lisa's thanks and let you know that I'm going to be ending the meeting now. Thank you and good night.